Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dad, Bods, and Beards. We've got a guest in the studio with us again today, and we will get to her in just a moment. But as always, we wanted to kick it off with our primary sponsor, Mountain Ops. We are not going to say the same information that we say every single episode of like, hey guys, did you know? And then insert the same information.
Rocky Mountain Ricky?
Yeah, no.
You've never had a lime Ricky before?
It's a lime Ricky. No. But as you guys know, if you've been listening to any of the last past episodes, we have been utilizing Mountain Ops for probably 8 or 9 months now. Tyson and I have changed our relationship with overall, I'd say, health and fitness. I mean,
And if you need a poop, Renew.
That's a great ad.
Dead serious. If you are you suffering from what's the opposite of diarrhea? Are you plugged? Renew by Mountain Ops. Will cleanse you.
This is why I do the commercials. But whether it's help with your digestive system or your health or with sleep or just, nutrition in general when it comes to supplements for working out or whatever, check out mountainops.com, use code DADBODS, you'll get 20% off. And then every purchase goes to feeding families in need.
Sure, he just made 50,000.
Who did?
At the Hunt Expo. They just did 50,000 meals.
If you've never met Trevor Farnes, who owns Mountain Ops, he is one of the best dudes we've ever met. But without further ado, we have got Jessica Harris in the studio with us today.
Should we do what we planned, though?
No.
Who's that girl? It's
Jess.
Ika.
Oh my gosh. Did you have caffeine on the way here?
No, I need it.
Yeah, no, you don't. But Jessica, so you're with an organization called Stand for Kind.
Yes.
Can you give us a quick snapshot for anybody who's never heard of it before?
Sure. Yeah. So Stand for Kind, we are a mental health nonprofit. We have been around over 15 years. We're nationwide. We are in close to 10,000 schools nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So it's been around for a minute. And we've worked in that world for a long time. And in the last 2 years, we had some of our donors, our sponsors come to us and just say, hey, we love what you're doing in the schools. We'd love for what you have in the schools to be more available to the public, to the community, to businesses, general public, really. So,
Wow.
So now we've moved from, we're still doing the schools, we're still working, doing what we've been doing for the last 15 years, but now we've ventured into the business world and communities. So now we're trying to do some really cool things with mental health in the communities.
Yeah, so I was looking, I was messing around with your website and stuff like that, and a lot of it had to do with suicide prevention and stuff like that. So why is that so important? What have you seen that is causing so much direction towards that way, especially in the kids?
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for quite a long time, and I'll just tell you a quick little history. Our director, our founder, her name is Pam Hayes. So about 15 years ago, a little over that, she was working in a school back east. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of talk around mental health or even suicide. But she was working not in anything mental health related. She was working as tech support for school. And during that time, one of the kids there completed suicide. And it was devastating, as you can imagine. And she, after talking to the school administration and even parents, they had no idea that this was even going to happen or that this kid had been struggling. The kids did. The kids knew, and they had heard. There were rumors. And at that time is when she came back to Utah. She was from Utah, lived in Utah, and decided that we needed more tools, resources, and trainings for our kids, parents, teachers at that time, peer-to-peer type of training, things like that. So she started the beginnings of Stand for Kind, tried to launch it here in Utah, but Utah wasn't as open to that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, to having that conversation. And so she took it to Texas first and launched it there and really took off in Texas.
Wow.
So I have a certain family member of mine, and we were very, very blessed because we didn't realize how bad, like this family member was crazy ornery, upset, angry, but I thought, oh, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
They're not doing something and they're not wanting to communicate. But it was a lot more than that. And this was before anything has ever happened. And then we get a phone call from her friend, and she's like, hey, so-and-so's going to try to kill herself tonight, and I need you guys to know that. And we had no idea. And so we go in, and sure enough. And so because of that, I feel like we partly, some of her, the life was saved. But then I just think the communication is so important. So what tools does it provide that it teaches parents, teaches kids to say, hey, let's talk. Let's not go through this. Let's talk about your emotions. Let's talk about your issues. Let's talk about all this kind of stuff, because your life is important. It's important to us, and it should be important to you. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. As far as the tools and resources for parents, I mean, that is vital. And I think, and I'll get into what those are, but I think that's something that we don't realize that it's a possibility for us. And I'll tell you the reason I even started down this road. I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. I have 4 kids, and I was very involved with my kids, loving mom and dad even, and we were all one big happy family, you know. And I never even, that didn't cross my mind. Obviously, I'd heard other situations, and even in the school, we had a few situations like that. But then in 2020, COVID was tough. That opened up.
Dude, it opened up a ton of baggage for everyone.
Oh, can of
everything.
worms,
It was a blessing and a curse, because you had where no one wanted to talk about it, and the stigma around it was just crazy, to COVID hitting and really bringing out that conversation, and really also bringing out a lot of mental health issues. So at the same time, we're
because they weren't able to mask it by doing activities and stuff like that.
Right, and we were all stuck.
Yeah, it took everybody out of their norm.
We were out of our community. We were out of our friends and connection. A lot of people. And so I had one of my daughters came to me and basically said, I don't want to be here anymore. And it was terrifying. Like, something that I did not think I didn't believe. I was in denial almost, but I knew, because I had friends that had, that I had helped that had some issues with suicidal ideation. I knew what I didn't know. I didn't have any information or tools, but I knew I couldn't leave her alone, and that's actually all I knew. So she came to me on a Thursday night, and that next day, I worked to try to get her into a hospital. It was packed, crowded, couldn't get her in.
So
6. I called 6.
Wow.
And I slept with her. I didn't let her out of my sight. I took her, if I left, she went with me. She was with somebody at all times. And
I know that feeling. I've experienced it.
It is as a parent, it's terrifying. You can't even sleep. And I didn't know what to do. So at that time, I wasn't involved in anything mental health related. I called a friend who I knew had talked to me about situations like this. I called her and I said, I don't know what to do. I can't get her in, and this is what's going on. And she got her into a therapist on Monday morning. And we went to the therapy appointment. Within like 30 minutes, this therapist walked to my car with her, and she said, don't go home. Actually, sorry, she did say, go home and pack, and you're going straight to uni.
That's where, yeah. And how'd you like them?
Loved it. Was life-changing for her. It was the best thing ever. It was the hardest drive there and leaving my daughter.
So
it was
hard.
Awful. I remember the drive vividly. And I remember driving away thinking, I don't ever want to be in this situation again where I'm not prepared. And I don't want anyone else to ever have to do this again.
Yeah.
Like, not know what to do. And I related a lot to CPR. You don't learn CPR when you're doing CPR. You learn before, so you know what to do. So that started me down that path of like.
And what's sad is it's not a matter of if, it's when now, because there's so much with all the social media, with all the stuff that's that takes away our attention, that we don't realize what's happening to us. And I feel like a lot of us are overwhelmed, stressed, bogged down, and it wears on you.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to, especially men. I'm still horrible at this. I'm just learning today. I'm stressed. Like, I'm habitually stressed. Like, I'm always stressed. And I'm like, that is wearing on me.
Yeah.
I'm tired. And all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, how do I get out of that? How do I get out of this thing? And so I'm reading a book about it and all this kind of stuff. And it's just but not everyone understands how they feel and why they feel that way. So how is your stuff be able to help?
Yeah. So
Sorry, Logan, I'm just talking.
No, I'm like a fly on the wall right now. I enjoy this.
After that whole situation, I found an organization called Stand for Kind.
Yeah.
And they brought me on to help with just a lot of things. You know, they, like I said, we were in the schools and then into the business development. But as far as the tools and resources we have in there, we have an app. We've always had an app for the schools, teachers, students, parents, free to them. They can have access to all the information as far as mental health goes. But what we've developed now is for the community, it's a lot of information around mental health, what to do. Do I have anxiety? Do I have depression? What do I do? What if my coworker is struggling? What do I do there? It's a lot of, within the app, it's a lot of information about just basically educating yourself. We have a whole parent toolkit in there with over 60 different topics with what teens and parents are dealing with today. And honestly, I mean, our kids don't come with a handbook, right?
No.
When I was a kid, when I
new.
was a teenager, I thought my parents just knew everything and they had it all together. And I'm like, whoa, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Because we're still learning.
Yeah.
Like we're continually evolving. Can I go back just a little bit
Sure,
real quick?
Yeah.
From what you've learned, because there's a lot of listeners with parents.
Yes.
Or with parents.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, I'm pretty sure everybody has them.
Hopefully.
With kids.
Yeah.
And they're going to, or hopefully they don't ever experience this, but maybe they're going through it right now. What have you learned to help them right now if they're listening and they're going through that right now that you just went through and what I went through as a parent?
Honestly, educate yourself. You need to find out. Number one, I think the conversation with your kids is super important. And that's something I was not doing. I was not bringing up these hard conversations. How are you doing? Checking in with them. If there's any self-harm going on, you don't want to avoid anything. I think at this point right now, everything's on the table, right? I mean, it's having the conversation.
So what's the hard conversation?
As far as
Just as far as what your suicidal idealization or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also different things to notice with your kids first. I mean, I don't think to just straight up ask them, are you having these thoughts? It depends on, are you seeing some signs? Are your kids acting depressed? Do you see a change in their sleep patterns? Do you see a change in friends? A change in school, things like that can be little signs that something is wrong. Are they in their room a lot? Are they not talking a lot? Are they keeping secrets? That type of thing.
Just sounds like me.
Well, the way I look at it is like, obviously you get this whole, it happens with every generation, right? I mean, especially now with like the great divide between, the baby boomers all the way down to what we have Gen Alpha now, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole like Gen Z conversation, oh, they don't want to do this or whatever. The way that, I'm starting to see it through the lens that I've started seeing life in the last 8 years is that I think there are signs that the younger generation are showing, but I think they're almost so like unapologetic that they don't care to hide them like past generations. Cause
Yep.
I mean, looking at things now, we look at it kind of like, oh yeah, grandpa definitely had something going on, but his coping mechanisms were super unhealthy, but he was still able to get this done.
Yep.
Then you look at the quality of life and you look at even life expectancy and just stress levels and like, anyways, I feel like the more that we had this conversation before with somebody that we can't almost say like, oh, the stigma, because the stigma, I feel like the stigma is dissipating.
Yes.
Like you're still going to have those people, especially on the internet, that are just ruthless.
Right.
And most of the time, those are almost the people who just haven't accepted the fact that they either themselves or someone in their life or somebody that they have associated with has struggled. And they just don't want to see it. Kind of like what you're talking about. They like, but I wanted to go back to something you said in the beginning. You said the phrase completed suicide.
Right.
We had another gal on the show back last summer that used a similar phrase. And this is something that has stuck pretty hard with me, is that she had said died by suicide as opposed to the term that everybody's used to, which is committed, which sounds like it's a crime.
Yes.
And so I never heard completed as well. And I've had people even on my own social media saying like, oh, you're being too soft about it. Like it's just a word. But like when you, I kind of wanted to get your take of like when you call it by a little bit more of a sensitive term of whether it be completed or died by, you're acknowledging that somebody who's going through in that mindset is not going to like, if you even attach the slightest thing of like committed, like it is wrong, it just makes the whole situation that much more worse.
Yeah.
So where did that term kind of come from? Is that something you learned with Stand for Kind, or something you kind of came with yourself, or?
No. I learned that through Stand for Kind.
Okay.
Yeah, just understanding that they're not in their right mind. I mean, they are definitely. It's not something that is their fault. You know, it is, and it's a very sensitive subject. Like to lose someone that way is devastating, and that's not how you want to address it. You know, that it is their fault, and so I think it's definitely something to be very aware of, and we are definitely so.
Well, and it's interesting because that never used to, the topic of suicide or suicidal ideation, it never used to really affect me until it became a potential reality for me when my mental health was slipping. And then I had moments of suicidal ideation, and it was actually around the time when Robin Williams passed. Yeah. And I, like everybody else, loved Robin Williams. Like I just, loved all of his stuff, and I admired the guy. And there was a guy in the office that I worked with at the time, very, very rough around the, I'd say rough around the edges, or at least he presented that he was rough around the edges. And he said, well, he took the easy way out. And that hit me like a 2x4 in the back of the head, and it made me feel terrible. Because in that moment, I was also struggling with a lot of stuff. Yeah. And so then it made me feel like the easy way out. Like I feel like I'm battling with this decision because I have a wife. I have, she's pregnant with our second child and all of this stuff. And then since then, I've grown to realize that like, wow, there's probably a lot of insecurities that guy was dealing with, that he had to speak ill of somebody that, chose that path. And because you don't choose it, like you said, in the right frame of mind.
Right. Yeah.
So I think having that going that extra mile to show just a little bit more sympathy or empathy really speaks volumes to me as to, how much of an advocate somebody is. Because if you're even conscious down to the phrasing of certain things, I think it kind of proves like your cognitive, ability when it comes to that topic. So I just wanted to, like, I appreciate that you'd said that. Like, I kind of appreciate the different ways that these topics can be brought up, sensitively, but also we can still talk about it in an impactful way.
Right. Exactly.
So, Stand for Kind, you guys also, you guys will get speakers in touch with schools, and you do put on.
So it's not just that we go into schools and we have just an assembly, and and it is fun, right? The messaging, we'll bring that in. But more what we're trying to do is the preventative, right? So we're trying to give the tools, the coping skills, the peer-to-peer type of support. Kids know, because kids will talk to kids, right? Before they talk to adults. So kids understand, okay, I hear my friend saying these things, or they're really depressed or things like that. And what do I do? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? Those are things that we're trying to teach in the schools. We're trying to give them more information, more education around it. So this messaging goes on through the schools throughout the entire year. It's not, we have curriculum around it. We have ambassador clubs. We do trainings with the athletes. We do trainings with the teachers. We do trainings with the parents, trying to keep the messaging the same and consistent across the board, so that this is just a continued conversation in the school, in the home. Really it starts in the home, right?
Yeah,
it's going to continue in the home too. So it's something that we're just really working to help the kids and parents and teachers understand that this is just, it's a conversation that just needs to be had, and lessons that need to be taught. So, as far as helping the kids, it's opening up the conversation. It's giving them permission to talk about it, that they're not the only ones. That's a big part of what we talk about. They're not the only ones. Everyone is struggling in some way, and everyone will struggle. Like, life is not going to be easy. And that's another thing that we need to remember. And our kids, they're going to hit some hard times. And how do we use those times for our good? How do we use that to help us, progress in life and become stronger, really? So,
because you don't want your kid to struggle.
No.
Like, I've got a daughter and then a little boy, and it's like, I don't want them to struggle at all. Yeah. I want them to learn. I want them to grow. I want them to experience things. I'm not going to solve every little problem for them. But I don't understand, and this isn't speaking from experience, like with my parents or anything like that, but it was, it was, I just don't understand the concept of if you know, one of my children did come to me and express anything like that, like I can't imagine shutting them down. I can't imagine turning them away. And that's not like, look at me standing on a soapbox. It's me of like having been through what I've been through. And you see these kids at younger and younger ages that are starting to develop and recognize parts of themselves.
Let's say Logan is right. I don't think, I think every parent, hey, Dad, I think I want to hurt myself or something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, we're going to react. How do you recommend parents reacting to that, and how do you communicate that? And like, I know most people who are listening will check out the app and stuff like that. But that being said, while they're driving, going to work or whatever, what do you recommend them doing?
Well, so definitely that's not something to take lightly. And I think sometimes we need to be reminded, like, that's not just trying to get, it's not, sometimes I've heard people say they're just trying to get attention.
Yeah.
That is not
makes my
it.
blood boil.
Oh, and here's the thing, whether they are or not, it doesn't matter. Like, don't think that's what it is. It's something we need to take seriously. It is a cry for help, like no matter what, no matter why. Right. So yeah, it's sitting them down and talking. Okay, you know, why do you feel this way? What's going on? And really having a conversation about really focusing on them and asking the right questions. And that's what I did not have as far as when I first had this happen. And that's where we need to educate ourselves more. And that's a lot of what we do. We try to offer that now as we're moving into businesses and communities and other specialty groups. That's what we're trying to put out there is learn now what you need to do. Be prepared now so that if that conversation does come up, then that's something you will be ready to have with your kids. Yeah. But I do think it's a conversation, you know, you take it seriously. Yeah. You start asking questions about, you know, how long has this been going on and what's going on in your life and, you know, really truly leading with love. And I know that a lot of people will talk about that, but leading with love is, and making your child feel safe around you in your home. And that's something I actually learned when my child went through this. The person I reached out to, she and I had a conversation even before this happened, but she just said, I didn't realize that I needed to be the safe place for my kids. Ooh. And that is something I wish every single parent could remember.
Saying that when this happened to me, like I'm being coy because it's not my story. Right. The person's going to come on when they're ready. Yeah. And it will be very powerful, and I'll sob to death because love her to death. But when we went to family counseling, and I will say it was for Center for Change after NICU, or not NICU, Uni, and all that stuff. We went for that, and we were doing family counseling, and I learned that I might be the problem. Not that the problem was because the reason she was in there, but more like I'm allowing things to happen in my house. And so I started taking therapy, and come to find out I way needed it. Wow. And but because of that, I learned that a lot of issues in my life that I was holding back that I didn't realize. Because like I said, most guys, I'm dead serious. It's like we don't know. Yeah. Like we don't know. Yeah.
You don't know until you.
Yeah. It's like this is just how we were raised. Like just not saying that hey, my dad was bad. Not like hey, hold it in, suck it up. Because he never said that once. Yeah. Just that's how it was. Right. Like, you know, and so this is what a guy feels like. He feels stress. He has to pay the bills. He has to figure things out. Yeah. It's just part of life. You feel this way. And so I just took it as that's it. And then I went to the therapist and I'm like, oh crap. There's a lot wrong with me. But it wasn't wrong with me, just a lot of trauma that I didn't realize was trauma. I just associated with it's just part of life. Yeah. And then come to find out. And then so we worked through that. And then I realized I can't do that to my children. And so I've become a much better, safer place for my kids, to the point where sometimes I'm like, I'm a little too safe. You're telling me a little too much right now.
No, but like, did I want to hear that?
Yeah. No, but I really recommend that. Like it's not. I have a son who I mentioned this in the podcast before. It's like he was struggling. He was mean to his mom. He was mean to everyone. And I'm like, this isn't him. Something's going on. And so instead of me getting mad at him saying, hey, I just said, hey, buddy, you know you're not supposed to talk to your mom like that. You know you're not supposed to talk to your brothers and sisters like that. What's up?
Yeah.
First, and I said this first, go apologize to your mom. And then second, let's go. He's like, well, I don't want to go. What am I in trouble? I'm like, no, buddy, let's go for a walk. And then, and then afterwards we'll go to Fizz and get a drink or something. And that's what we did. And I learned a lot of what's going on in his life and why he feels and acted that way. And so it's just like, there's a lot of different things you can do to react.
Right.
And that's why I asked, because I'm like, I know I'm not perfect. And so how am I supposed to say, if someone says, hey, Dad, I'm thinking of hurting myself?
Yeah.
Like, because I would just want to fix it.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to ask.
That's good. You got to be curious, like you just did.
Yeah.
Like, just be curious. Like, find out what's going on in a loving way. Because usually when there's like that, the anger or something, surface, there's something going on.
Always.
Deeper. Yeah.
There's always.
So it's like, got to find out what's going on and don't let up on it and don't just take it lightly. It's like something you got to explore and keep exploring. And then make sure your kids know, like, I can go talk to my dad, or my mom, and I can tell them things, and they're not gonna be mad, or they're not gonna judge me or shame me. Like, those are things that just, and it's not saying your kids can get away with everything. Like, you still were like, go apologize to your mom.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you need to know that's not okay, but what's going on?
Shouldn't let your emotions dictate how you treat people and talk to
Yes.
people.
So I like that we were talking about that, because a thought that I had was, not to say traditional, like, it just kind of the older style of parenting at times where it was like, and I'm still capable of it myself, the dad voice, the get loud, and sometimes that will come out with like the disrespect of mom. But again, I have babies. I mean, they're 8 and 6.
Yeah.
Right. But they're
that's your girlfriend. That's your lady.
That
and
is
it's
my
really
girlfriend.
hard when they disrespect your wife. It's hard for me.
I've found that I have had more success when it's a, hey, like, come here. Like, look me in the eyes, like, sit down on their level. And I've plenty of guys. I was in the construction industry for a long time. That's not how you do it. You smack them, you get the belt or whatever. When I was the loud dad, the smack in the back of the head dad or whatever, and that sounds way worse than it is. Well, like a flick or a poke or like,
I have
like
a bruise on the back of my head.
or like a
Logan,
spanking or whatever.
whenever I say something,
It was like, no, you're just perpetuating fear.
Right.
You're not correcting the issue. You're just like, if I do this again, I'm going to get hit, or I'm going to get yelled at, or my dad's going to be the scary dad, versus like, hey, I don't talk like that because that upset my dad.
Yeah.
And I learned that it's because it was disrespectful to mom, or it was disrespectful to my sister.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, of like, big sister can really give it to the little brother too. Like, she can punk on him just as well. But I've found that those conversations have so much deeper meaning, and then they lead the kids to come to you. Right. And to the point that I was the roundabout point I'm making with this, and what it sounds like Stanford kind
he
of
has
does.
such feminine hands.
I don't know. Thanks, man.
He could be a hand model.
But the point that this is kind of getting is that I've found that those type of conversations, giving people those tools, giving people the opportunity to understand these signs, it leads to deeper connections.
Yes.
Because we've gotten the comments before, and we've gotten people talking to us before saying that, like, mental health just sounds like it's always this doom and gloom. It just sounds like it's this woe is me, this complaining. It's always sad. Well, the happy side of that is that you develop these relationships with people of when you get a phone call from that person who used to just be in the depths, and you hear the perk in their voice. It's like you legitimately get this like butterfly of like, they sound so good.
Yep.
And then you feel happy that they're the person, like that you're one of their people. You're one of their safe places. You're one of their inner circle people.
Yep.
And like you said, kids talk to kids.
Right.
I mean, my childhood best friend, him and Tyson are like the only guys I talk to.
Wow.
And so it's like, you create these bonds with people, bonds with these kids in these growing moments. And so I think what you guys are doing by one of the aspects being going to the schools and teaching the kids these signs, because then they're going to be looking out for them friends.
Right.
And then as parents, as adults, we can almost learn from kids. Like, I mean, I for the sake of privacy, there's a little girl that my friend is, or my daughter is friends with, and she's been bounced around the foster care system.
Yeah.
And my 8-year-old daughter is like aware of that.
Wow.
and talking to us about where this little girl has ended up and
Wow.
what family she's with now. And she came home so excited, talking about the fact that she might be getting adopted, and that'll be like, so
That's cool.
I'm like, this is my 8-year-old,
Yeah.
and she's starting to understand the concept of, well, so-and-so is having a hard time because she's in this system.
Yeah.
And Tyson and I both have, experiences in our family with adoption and foster care and things like that. My little sisters are, but it's like that connection that comes from kid to kid.
Yep.
I feel like we can glean a lot from that as adults
Yes.
of like that. I feel like it's like untainted, like love for like another human being, because you're not affected by the rest of the world yet and
Yes.
opinions. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, and you're teaching them. You're
Yeah.
teaching your daughter to be more compassionate and empathetic towards, somebody that is going through a really hard time, and she's young. I think growing up, we were probably the same age, I think, yes. And for in the 80s.
Not him, me.
Or
You're-
close.
he's
Yeah, you're
young.
younger, right?
I'm 35.
Okay, yeah, younger.
The gray in the beard throws people off. at
No,
times.
you
So,
look,
like,
you're
I will be
younger.
46 in November.
I'm 46.
Hey!
Welcome. Yes.
So 97 or 98?
That I graduated,
Uh-huh.
97.
And I was 98.
I'm just
Oh,
a
okay.
baby, I guess.
We're best
Yes,
friends now.
We're besties. We're besties.
Sorry, Logan.
That's okay. Next week. Jessica and Tyson.
That's right.
Who's that girl?
And that's how we'll start it. Jess. Yeah, so in the 80s growing up, I mean, it was tough love. I mean,
yeah.
it was like, we were not being kept watched. We were like
yeah.
just out.
Did you ever
rogue,
get hit by
right?
a spoon? The wooden spoon?
I did.
Me too.
Actually, I was like, did you play? I played spoons too. Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah,
Say, what
all
was
the
it like
time.
in Idaho? You just like threw spoons at each other.
No, but we would shoot BB guns at plastic garbage cans and ricochet, and we would have to bet who we were going to hit when it's so we had to dodge them.
Well, see, I'm
didn't play that game.
I'm one of 7 kids, and my oldest sister is in your guys' same age as you guys. So it's like I still got the parenting of the 80s. you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
No, like I was like, you'd hear the whistle, and then
Oh
okay,
yeah, I
it's time
came
to come
running.
home.
I knew.
Yeah, 'cause the lights
street
are
lights
going
were
out.
on. You're
Yeah.
like, oh
Yes.
dang.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
there's nothing they
Yeah.
couldn't get a hold of you.
Yeah, and if you got hurt, you got hurt. Like, it just was so different. And not saying that we grew up as like cold-hearted people, but I do think it's very different nowadays, like with our kids. And we're really because of what our kids are dealing with, it's not what we dealt with.
At all.
I mean, when we were bullied at school, maybe out in the streets because we were playing with our friends. You went home and it was gone. But now you get bullied 24/7 because you have it in your face constantly. So you might be at school getting bullied, and then you're getting bullied on the phone.
Well, and it's
then
also like
gaming.
roundabout bullying.
Yeah.
It's like unfortunately there's people on social media that have massive followings. They're not bullying you to your face, but by
Yeah.
basically saying, because you don't look like this, because you don't act like this, because you don't
100%.
have this,
Yes.
you're not enough.
Right.
And that's almost worse bullying than someone pushing you down and like, dropping a loogie on your forehead and
Right.
punching you.
Yeah. I
So-
mean, they're dealing with just so much more. And so, like, I think our kids need to be a little more in tune to what's going on. Like, you can't just say anything anymore because you're behind a screen. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Like, what is it going to do to that person? They don't get to, if you're saying something behind a screen, you don't see the person's face. You don't see their reaction. If you're saying it to their face, you see their face. And that's going to, make you feel bad or there's some connection there. And you're like, oh my gosh, I actually hurt them. I actually said something awful. But if you're just typing it, you're just typing it. There's
Yeah.
no emotion really tied. So, I mean, I just think it's a different world that our kids are growing up in. And a lot of people will be like, oh, our kids have it so easy. They don't. It's so hard out there. I mean, just going into schools and, when I get to participate. Now, I work a lot in the business world right now, and that's really my main job. But as I was first hired on at Stand for Kind, and even a little bit before that, I was going into schools and I was doing the assemblies or doing some other things in the schools. I was also, in the schools with my kids, but the stories are just incredible. Our kids are so amazing. They're just
yeah.
amazing. Like, and from young to very, very young, making a difference in the world, doing these amazing little things that just make this a difference when they're just these little tiny first, second graders, holding doors for people just to help those kids have a better day. I mean, such a tiny little thing. And just a really cute story from that. A little boy saw one of our assemblies, and part of the messaging was, do one thing today to to do something kind, to lift someone else. And one of the stories in our assembly was a kid that held the door every single day at school. He was an older kid, high schooler, and just wanted to do something because he was kind of just no one knew him. He was the new kid. You know, he had just lost his dad, moved to a new school, and just started holding the door. And all the kids they kind of interviewed, and they're like, yeah, he was kind of the weird kid at first, you know, like the weird door holder kid. And then after a while, everyone was like looking forward to him. He'd say hi to everyone or high five him. By the end of the year, he was prom king. They gave him a door. Everyone signed it, you know. So we did this whole thing, and we left. And a few days later, we get an email from the school with their security cameras, and they had just kind of done a screenshot overhead. One of the little second grade boy had been coming every day since the assembly. He had his dad bring him early every single day to hold the door for all the kids.
Oh, that's cool.
I know, you guys. I usually can't get through that story without crying. It was just so incredible. And I was like, that is exactly what, I mean, that is just a little kid making a difference in his world, right? One other quick story, we had gone for a lunch activity to basically promote kindness in the school. So we were giving the kids these really cool kindness activities. So they'd come and draw from the bucket, go around to another kid, learn something about them you didn't know, their name, make up a cool handshake. But one of them was thank your teacher. And it was just random, you know, kids were drawing, and we left after the activity. The kids, drew it. They'd go do it, come back and report to us, and they'd get candy. And it was just a fun lunch activity. Well, a few days later, maybe about a week later, we get an email from a teacher. And it was a teacher that taught 8th grade. And she said, I got this letter. And she said, this boy had written her a letter and just said, I was challenged by Stand for Kind to write a letter to my teacher to say thank you. And he's like, at first I didn't want to do it. But he said, I just have to tell you, to this one teacher. And she was like, I'm crying the whole way through. She said that he said, thank you for showing up. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for this was the whole letter. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for helping me realize my potential. And I have a hard time getting through that, but it was just that teacher said her life will forever be changed and his life will forever be changed just because of the teacher recognizing that he was there, just saying little things like, I'm glad you're here. Yeah. And just never giving up on him. Mm-hmm. And she said this kid was reserved and he didn't want to talk and he wasn't participating. But by, halfway through the year, she had seen this change in him, and this is why. And so just that little challenge just caused him to write that letter.
We don't realize that 99.9%, if not 100%, everybody just wants to be seen, even just a little bit for who they really are.
Yes.
And I don't mean to, I love those stories. And I don't mean to bring the mood down, but I can't help but think about a kid that I went to high school with. He was the kid, popular kid. We played football together, star running back. It just had everything going for him. He was either prom king or senior ball king or something. Like he was just, and a couple years after high school, I'd moved away and went on and got a notice from my mom that he had died by suicide. Wow. Was the last kid you ever would have thought. Yeah. Had everything going for him, seemingly popular, super straight A, like lettered in like 3 different sports. Wow. And I sit here and think, and this was early 20s, like if not late, like 19, maybe 20. Yeah. And it was like a shock to the whole community because we were pretty tight knit, city where we grew up. And it was just one of those things that every now and then, kind of as the anniversary comes up, we think back because he's a football. He was like you're like brothers, senior year in football, junior year in football. Mm-hmm. But you just never would have expected this from him. Yeah. And so I think, in hindsight, I'm like, man, like what would have would there have been any signs or like what? Because some of these kids are better at hiding these big feelings than some adults are. Right. And so that's what I was saying, like, not to bring it down, but like that's where my mind kept going of like, he and I were not brothers by any means, but we played football together. We had classes together. We'd known each other for years, and there was guys that were obviously much closer to him that were like super affected by it. But it was like he'd been at my house a bunch of times. We'd done a bunch of stunts together, and I never never suspected anything. Even his family, no one suspected anything. And it's just, that's the nature of the reality, is that like kids,
Right.
like they have their breaking point too.
Yeah.
And I know the kind of focus on this episode has kind of been like the kids in the schools. And that's obviously like, you can tell that it's a big heart moment for you,
Right.
obviously with your personal history.
Yes.
So what is something like, what is the Stand for Kind? What is something that we can utilize through the platform, through the app? Like, what can we do? Like, what can our listener base do? Like, what?
Right.
And how can
Yeah.
they find you?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
So-
you'll be in our links
Yeah.
during that. So
And I sent that link for you guys, so the free downloadable app with all of the information and tools, resources.
it's
and
all free.
Yes, that's free. So
And Bods is on there,
yes, it is.
which is cool.
Yeah. So kind of from that story where, what we're trying to do in schools is give them more coping skills and telling, letting them know they're not alone. And this is conversations we need to have. But as they grow up and as we go into adulthood, and then also adults, as we're now working with a lot in the community, a lot of people, just like this kid, suffer in silence. They want to put on the, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good. I need to provide for my family, especially men. Honestly, I love your podcast. I
thank
obviously
you.
Thank
listen
you.
to it, but also what you guys are offering to the world, the vulnerability that you guys have, the mental health space that you're creating, the permission to have these conversations and feel the way they feel, to let down the guard. That is, it is amazing what you're doing. And so I want to promote, like, women, we need those too, right? We need those connections. And not that, like, we're also promoting women's groups in there and women's podcasts. And obviously we need all that. But I just don't think men understand that they need it too. They need that connection too with other men. And they need to feel like it's okay to not always be the tough guy, to not always be on. Like, it's okay to be off a little bit. It's okay to show that you're struggling. But that's where we come in. I mean, it's like offering a place, a safe place for you to go and say, okay, I don't know what I'm dealing with here, or I don't know who to call or what to do. We have hotlines. We have the information in there, places to go. We have who to talk to. What if, am I struggling? What if I'm struggling? What do I do if I am? If you don't feel like you want to go to the hospital, like, there's things in there to help you to calm down, to know how to handle a panic attack. Things like that really can help men, women, anyone struggling. But I really do feel like that happens a lot. The silence, right? Struggling, and you're just silent about it until, unfortunately, it can get to be too much. And that's what we want to avoid. We don't want that. So we're just trying to give as many tools and resources and information as we can to really just say, hey, this is what you can use for now. And if you need to go, it can actually sometimes be like a way for someone to get into, like, it's almost like getting used to the idea of, okay, I am struggling. Okay, I do need help. Okay, now I'm ready to find help. And in there, there's help.
It sounds like it's like the interim of, like, giving you the privacy you need to start exploring these without, because you do have to be cautious of sometimes who you talk to.
Right.
So I like that.
And you don't, I mean, I would hope nobody would judge, but sometimes it does happen.
It does,
and we work.
Logan judges me all the time.
Yeah.
It comes with the territory.
As long as you guys still love each other at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Debatable. I'm just kidding.
Mostly.
Don't ever start a business with your best friend. Because, like, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that can be a problem. No, we work. So one of our specialty groups is first responders. That's a huge soft spot for me. I have a son-in-law who's a police officer.
We're doing a fundraiser for I Got Your 622 for first responders military.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'll be out in Florida in May.
And what is it?
It's gonna be my.
So we have a friend that has a charity. It's called I've Got Your 622. He trains service dogs.
That's right.
Yeah.
For veterans and first responders. He gives it to them completely for free. We did a charity beard competition a couple years ago.
At our barbershop at Copper
And
John's.
we connected with a really big creator on social media. He's
Okay.
got about 9 million followers on one account and a bunch on the other. He's a soon-to-be veteran, and we connected over a video of me shaving my beard. And I challenged him. I said, "Hey, we're going to come out to you in May in Florida, and we're going to put on a big charity event. We're going to have these guys come out. There's no reason why we can't get 20 to 50 dogs donated because of this event." So we're big veterans, first responders, guys as well.
Amazing. I mean, I've talked to a lot, and I know a lot, and they suffer in silence because if you don't look like, you lose your job.
Right. We've talked about that with some guys.
Yes, 100%. And so they won't get help or they won't seek. And this is a way for them to do that. We're also trying to do another a fundraiser for mental health to give more funds so that they have access to more therapy and more options for mental
Count
health.
us in.
Yeah, we're doing that with
please
the
let us
Warriors,
know.
actually, with the rugby team.
Yeah.
So it's coming up in May.
That would be amazing. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, you count
We'll
us
talk
in.
more about that.
Whatever you need help with, we'll help.
Yeah, that'd be great, you guys.
Well, and like you said, you've got us in your app.
Yep.
I love the idea because this is one of the biggest questions I had in the beginning was like, where do I go now?
Yes.
What do I do now? And so this Stand for Kind sounds like it's going to be, it's not just for you, but it's also like resources for the people in your life, the kids in your life.
For
So I
everyone.
love this. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Guys, follow the links in our bio. We'll put this right at the top right after this episode airs. You can download Stand for Kind for free and access all of the resources there.
Yep. And then standforkind.com.
Yeah.
They can go check that out. And we even have a whole side for businesses that's totally separate. But it's just what we're trying to do in the world is really get out more of these places for people to go that they can find out more about what they're going through or loved ones and then help themselves or others. So that's really what we're trying to do. Yeah.
And just so everyone know, we're not getting paid for this. We're not doing this is just something that's really important to us. And so we asked you on because I think it's really important that people find the resources to be able to help themselves, help their families, help their loved ones. And so I appreciate you being here, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Or Susan or Rachel.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All of it.
Tyson can't remember. But no, this is one of our big reasons why we started the channel and started the show is to have these type of conversations. So what you said earlier really meant a lot. I mean, it struck a chord of this is why we do what we do, and we've met some amazing people along the way that have been fighting the fight longer than us. And it's fun to learn from you. It's fun and it's interesting. And so just thank you. And we've got some other fun stuff coming up with a couple of the speakers that you work with. And we're excited. So this is going to be like a fun ongoing relationship. So check out Stand for Kind, check out the app, check out the website, and we'll catch you guys next week.